Vault Typhoon, living off the land, KV Botnet. If those three terms don't immediately connect into a coherent threat picture for you, your SOC has a detection gap that might be getting exploited as we speak. Here's what your SIM almost certainly doesn't catch. Vault Typhoon, China's most disciplined infrastructure threat actor, who doesn't use malware. They use your tools, running on your systems, under your credentials, and they've been doing it for the last 5 years. Most of the coverage on this group focuses on geopolitics. This briefing doesn't. We're going tool by tool, technique by technique, and IOC by IOC. Because the intrusion isn't the attack, the intrusion is the weapon, and it has been loaded for years. First, the naming chaos that exists. You'll encounter this actor as Vanguard Panda, Bronze Silhouette, UNC 3263, Insidious Tarius, and even Voltazite. Microsoft has designated them Vault Typhoon, and this is what CISA are calling them in their joint advisory notifications. So we'll stick to that tag for this briefing. It's the same actor, 6 different names. The fragmentation itself is an intelligence signal that tells you this group has been tracked in silos for years, before anyone understood the full scope of the campaign. Attribution for this group is high. The Five Eyes Partners has issued a joint advisory attributing this to the People's Republic of China, with state sponsorship from the People's Liberation Army and the Ministry of State Security. This isn't one criminal group monetizing access. The motive is not a financial one. It is pre-positioning, embedding persistent footholds inside US and UK water systems, power grids, and telecommunications providers before any conflict begins, and they will be activated all simultaneously if geopolitical conditions escalate. FBI Director Christopher Wray, testifying before his House Select Committee in January 2024, described it as positioning to wreak havoc and cause real-world harm to American citizens. Ex-CISA Director Jen Easley called the potential scenario everything all at once. Simultaneous failures across telecom, water, transport, and power. The targeting profile tells you everything about their intent. They aren't hitting defense contractors or government networks for intelligence collection. They're targeting municipal water supplies, electrical substations serving hospitals, and regional internet service providers, and even port utility systems in Guam. So, where did it all begin? How did we get to this point? This pre-positioning, ready for chaos. Mid-2021. This is the earliest identified activity for Vault Typhoon. Vault Typhoon begins constructing what will become the KV Botnet, a network of compromised small office and home office routers that mask C2 activity. This is the foundational infrastructure work. They're building the highway before they start driving on it. Then in August 2022, the first confirmed intrusions targeting Guam, specifically utility infrastructure supporting the Andersen Air Force Base and its naval installations. This is not a coincidence. Then May 2023, Microsoft publicly discloses the campaign. The global security community wakes up to the scale of what's been happening quietly in the background for years. By the time a nation-state actor is publicly named, assume your sector's peers have already been compromised and they're already in your networks. Then we move to December 2023. The DOJ and FBI executes a court-authorized operation, remotely deleting Vault Typhoon malware from hundreds of infected routers across the US. This causes significant operational disruption, but within 72 hours, the group attempts to re-exploit over 2,000 devices to rebuild its network. That recovery speed tells you this isn't just a hacktivist collective or a ransomware gang working on laptops. This is an industrialized, resourced operation that considered its botnet infrastructure a critical capability. Fast forward to January 2024. Congressional testimony from Ray and Eastleigh. The threat moves from classified briefings to public record, and the government urge everyone to start doing things about it. October 2025. Vault Typhoon starts exploiting CVE 2024 39717, a zero-day in the Versa Director SD-WAN. They use this to target ISPs and managed service providers. They aren't done building access just yet. They want to expand their blast radius. Then in February 2026, Drago's annual report is released, saying this threat actor is active and embedded and still unresolved. They track their initial access as a cluster called Silver Knight, and it is identified as a still operating precursor to Vault Typhoon access. 5 years of documented activity, active right now. That is the threat landscape your SOC is operating in. So, how do you go about catching them? Vault Typhoon almost never deploys custom malware. That single fact breaks most of your detection stack. Every capability your SOC has built on signature matching, hash reputation, and sandboxing is partially blind to this actor. A traditional actor is an intruder, carrying specialized burglary tools. Your security guard spots them and stops them immediately. Those tools don't belong here. Vault Typhoon is like a janitor. They walk in the front door. They use the building's own mops, its own keys, its own maintenance corridors. To everyone monitoring the system, it looks like Tuesday morning operations as standard. Here's the toolkit they use. Entirely native Windows binaries. You have WMIC for OS version, patch level, hardware infantry reconnaissance without touching disk or flagging in your EDR. Then you have NetSH for port forwarding configuration to tunnel malicious traffic through legitimate looking local connections. Then you have Net User and Net Group. They use these tools to map admin accounts and your domain structure. Then we have ScheduledTasks.exe for persistence via scheduled tasks. No persistent binary on your disk, just a scheduled task that looks like routine maintenance. Then we have the big one, NTDSutil. This is the crown jewel, used to create and install from media snapshot of the Active Directory database. Every password hash in your domain is extracted using a tool Windows servers ship natively with, masking in with that legitimate admin activity. Minor attack mappings cluster around Windows command shell, NTDS credential dumping, proxy use, scheduled task persistence, and archive via 7-zip for data staging. Building detections around those technique IDs is the key to hunting down this threat. So, once they're in, how does Vault Typhoon then operationalize this access? Vault Typhoon doesn't connect your network to someone back in China. That would trigger geofencing controls and IP reputation checks, which your stack is well positioned to use. Instead, they route all of their command and control traffic through their KV botnet, a network of compromised small office and home office routers that makes Beijing look like a Comcast residential subscriber in Kansas, US. The hardware is end of life, unpatched and forgotten, but are still sitting there in small businesses' back offices and home networks, still connected to the internet. Custom MIPS-based malware turns these boxes into operational relays, a transparent proxy that injects into your network's traffic baseline, disguising as residential activity. If you run network perimeter equipment that is past end of life and still exposed to the internet, then that hardware is a candidate recruitment for this threat group. They will target it in their next iteration of their botnet. Before Vault Typhoon establishes long-term persistence, there is a distinct initial access cluster, which has been designated by Dragos as Silver Knight. This handles the perimeter breach. Silver Knight exploits public-facing edge devices like FortiGate SSL VPNs, Ivanti Connect, or Soho's Manage Engine. These are your network's front doors, and the exploits, well, they're publicly available. You can look up the CVEs, they're well documented. The problem is these vulnerabilities remain unpatched for long enough for the threat group to get in. Silver Knight's job is the entry and internal mapping. Once the environment is charted and access is stable, Silver Knight will hand over the keys to Vault Typhoon for that long-term dwelling and pre-positioning. This is a two-phase operation, and it explains why you may find evidence of initial exploitation with no obvious signs of follow-on activity. That follow-on activity is very, very quiet and may come months or even years after that initial access has been brokered. So, they use your own tools, they route through your neighbour's router, and they've been doing it since at least 2021. And the FBI's own takedown operation just led the group to rebuild their infrastructure within 72 hours. How can you hunt down this threat in your network and find the ghost operating within the wires? File-based detection fails against this actor, full stop. If your detection posture is signature dependent, you're operating blind. The shift you need is from what files exist to what processes are doing things they shouldn't be doing. What looks abnormal in my environment? Threat hunting priorities for your environment. Threat Hunt 1. Process creation anomalies. NTDSutil.exe with those install from media arguments right into publicly accessible folders. No legitimate administrator creates an Active Directory media backup to those locations. If that fires on your domain controller, treat it as a confirmed compromise until proven otherwise, and investigate it with rigor. Hunt number 2. Anomalous port forwarding. Any port forwarding not to one of those local IP addresses, like that 192.168 range or that 10.0 range. The destination address is what separates maintenance from espionage. If you see port forwarding to a remote IP address, get to the bottom of it. Hunt 3 is event 4624 baselining. This is the logon success event in Windows. If you see it from a residential ISP source, outside of business hours, hitting privileged accounts, those could be operational relay box relay connections. Hunt 4 is on staging directories, file creation to those perf logs, user public app file directories we just discussed. Watch for user.dat and systeminfo.dat specifically. These are confirmed staging artifacts from a recent CISA advisory on Vault Typhoon. Then Hunt 5 is tool renaming. Hunt for in-packet secretstump.py behavior from unexpected hosts. Flag processes named syscoup.exe or vmdservice.exe. Known renamed fast reverse proxy client names used to confirm intrusions. Attackers love to rename their tools to blend in with legitimate files or services. So look out for common misspellings of those legitimate applications or services. We've covered some operational intelligence that you can take action on with those threat hunts. But let's move it to that strategic defensive priority layer. And two things above all. First, IT and OT network segmentation. Vault Typhoon's entire lateral movement chain depends on pivoting from your information technology network into your operational technology environment. that's controlling the physical systems like water, telecommunications, and gas. An air gap or robust segmentation with monitoring on those cross points will break that kill chain at the most critical juncture. Second, phishing-resistant MFA on every privileged account as a minimum. Vault Typhoon lives on valid credentials. That's how they blend in. If you can eliminate easy credential movement, you force them into noisier techniques that your EDR or SIM has the opportunity to catch. The cybersecurity community are framing this as a China problem, and this is tactically correct, but strategically dangerous in the long term. Every major nation state, including the US and its allies, is developing these pre-positioning capabilities against critical infrastructure. The doctrine Vault Typhoon represent, dwell without action, degrade without attribution, is being replicated everywhere. The actors change, but the playbook is being adopted globally. If your threat model only accounts for the People's Republic of China, targeting operational technology environments, then your model is already out of date. That's been happening for the past 5 years. You need to assume that everybody might be trying to pre-position themselves in your networks and look for those anomalies that stand out, particularly if you're in critical national infrastructure. Vault Typhoon. Current activity status: active. Dragos' February 2026 report confirms Vault Typhoon remains embedded in US utilities. The Silvereye cluster is actively exploiting edge devices. Current priority targets for that Silvereye initial access group include Fortinet, Ivanti, and Soho Edge appliances. If you have any edge devices and run in that CNI space, then you are in the targeting window. Predicted trajectory: Vault Typhoon's operational tempo tracks with geopolitical tensions between the East and West. Expect increased activity against the Pacific region in particular, as infrastructure and supply chains here remain at risk, as well as the supply chains operated by MSPs and ISPs in mainland US. One MSP compromise could potentially deliver access to dozens of downstream infrastructure clients. If you outsource any network management function, your MSP security posture is now your attack surface. What CISA has made explicit: what has been found is the tip of the iceberg. The detection challenge is structural. Many small municipal utilities lack the tooling, budget, or expertise to know that they've even been compromised in the first place. Dragos has stated openly that some of these breaches may never be found because of the limited resources available in that operational technology space. Knowing Vault Typhoon's tactics, techniques, and procedures doesn't help you unless your organization has a structured process for hunting behavioral anomalies across your IT and OT environments. And behavioral detection requires knowledge of the detection engineering process, a structured approach to researching, developing, and deploying detections across your environment. This video walks through the detection engineering process and how to calibrate your defenses against actors like Vault Typhoon, who often bypass traditional detection mechanisms. If this video told you there's a problem, then the next one tells you how to make it relevant to your environment. Subscribe for more cyber threat intelligence deep dives and threat actor breakdowns. Stay sharp and happy hunting.